Governor Wike of Rivers State has described the allegation that he ordered the Nigerian army to kill Igbo people in the Oyibo local government area of the state as politically motivated falsehood. Wike said a curfew was imposed on the Oyibo to restore calm after members of the proscribed indigenous peoples of Biafra killed 6 soldiers, 4 policemen, and destroyed all police stations and court buildings there. He said the narrative that the Igbos were being killed by the military is intended to shift the attention from the despicable activities of IPOB in Oyibo, which is a boundary between the adjoining Abiola state. The governor lamented IPOB's infantry to rename a local government in the state and hoist its flag in the public school in Kokum town. Wike maintained that if IPOB is allowed to operate from Oyibo, it will soon overrun the state. The governor said the state government has no regret against its stance on IPOB. What is happening to them?
That's a great question, because frankly, we don't know. It's interesting that even the army has not confirmed whether or not their soldiers died. It's still sort of eyewitness accounts and, various reports. There hasn't been an official confirmation of the casualties suffered by soldiers, if at all that actually exists. Certainly, there has been no confirmation that the army is going from house to house shooting youths, which is what is being claimed. The army said that they were attacked, rifles were stolen, so they are going about the process of trying to regain the rifles that were taken from the army. Obviously, they cannot be left in the wrong hands. They have denied killing people because there's no offense in Nigeria. Governor Wike alleged this act from IPOB of hoisting their flag in Kom area, which is obviously treason in Nigeria. You're trying to secede and declare a part of the sovereign state of Nigeria to be another country. That's an offense. But there's no offense that exists in Nigerian law for which the penalty is summary execution. That does not exist. So really, we just hope that we have a thorough investigation, because it is very strange to see Governor Wike on the same side as the 6th Division. You'll recall the rancorous relationship that Governor Wike had with the military during the elections. Yes.
Well, I mean, it is perfectly within the rights of Governor Wike to defend himself and to say that it is not true that he has the army to step in control the situation in the Igbo local government. But, however, it is on record that during the NSAS protest, Oyibo community was a particularly, it's also called Obibo, was a particularly hot spot, during that period, with the sacking of a police station, the alleged beheading of the DPO of a police station, and the subsequent imposition of a 24-hour curfew on that community. Now, that curfew is now about almost 2 weeks, and there have been humanitarian indications. Persons have protested that they've not been able to have access to water, to food, to medical care, or drugs, and there may be persons who have medication whose drugs have run out. And if anybody steps out, the people allege that they could be shot by the military. So Amnesty International issued a statement saying that what we have in Oyibo, whatever may be the other security issues, is a humanitarian crisis. So the first point, beyond Governor Wike saying that he's innocent in this matter, is to look at the humanitarian dimension of it that has been highlighted by Amnesty International. For how long would that curfew last if people have no access to food, to water, to drugs? That's the first part of it. The second part of it is that, yes, the military will be in a position to say they only act in situations like this in aid of civil authorities under Section 218 of the Constitution. So Governor Wike himself does not have the powers to deploy the military, but he is in a position to say, look, this particular part of my state is in trouble, and then he seeks the support of the military. The military will get his directives, I guess, directly from the president, who is the commander-in-chief. And that will be processed, and the military will will put boots on the ground to ensure that there is no breakdown of law and order. However, the last time we looked at this subject, I said the spokesperson of the 6th Division of the Nigerian Army in Port Harcourt, Major Charles Ekeocha, spoke and said, well, the reason they are in the Oyibo community was to protect the residents themselves, to ensure that the rifles of the 6 soldiers who were killed by persons allegedly being members of IPOB, that those rifles are retrieved because those rifles could be used to further disturb law and order in that particular community. And he said, look, the houses that they have visited, they are houses that have been identified as the residence of persons who are members of IPOB. And you know that IPOB, of course, has been involved in secessionist moves and has had, big problem, if I may use that phrase, with the Nigerian military. So Oyigbo now has become another theater for that confrontation between IPOB militants and the Nigerian army. But the point that needs to be made is that whatever may be the level of provocation or the causative details, the Nigerian army has no powers under the Constitution to engage in extrajudicial killings. If indeed 6 soldiers were killed, what we expect the military to do is to go in there, identify who those killers are, apprehend them, and hand them over to the police so that they can be passed through due process. Yeah. The Nigerian army cannot say 6 of our soldiers were killed, our rifles were seized, and then we'll go on a mission of vengeance, on a retaliatory operation. That is unacceptable because not even the Nigerian army, nobody in Nigeria is allowed to break the law willfully. And so we call on the chief of army staff to look into this, for an investigation to be carried out. Amnesty International and Socioeconomic Rights and Accountability Project, they are saying, and pictures have been posted on social media. You can say, well, you can question those pictures, but what we have seen on social media and elsewhere are pictures of bodies lying on the streets. Where did those bodies come from? Where did the gunshot wounds indicated in those pictures, where did they emanate from? So I think it has reached a level now that it has even gone beyond the level of Governor Wike. He can proclaim innocence to whatever extent he deems fit, but I think that the president and the chief of army staff should take an interest in what is happening in that place, to defend the interest of the people, to protect the people, and to make sure that we do not have the Nigerian army on a mission of vengeance on account of the alleged killing of 6 of their men and the seizure of their rifles. I
mean, we should not, we pray we don't have that because we've had episodes like that in the past. I mean, OD has come to mind. It's been very contentious as regards OD, but we don't want that again. Please.
And Zaki Biam.
And Zaki Biam. We want peace to reign in this country.
And also the trend of it all.
Yeah.
Something will happen, there'll be some kind of disaster, there'll be denials, accusations, counter-accusations. It's becoming a disturbing trend.
A lot of gaslighting.
Yes.
A lot of gaslighting.
Yes, it's becoming...
you have to credit...
only for that.
Only for that.
A lot of gaslighting. The gaslighting is so much that we'll have no gas very soon. All right, that's all on News Headline. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have the trio of Rotus, Michael Wilson, and Adesu Amora to give us COVID-19 update. Right, welcome back. Still the morning show, right here on the Arise News channel. Dependable Rotus Odiri is here to give us Africa Business Update. Rotus, over to you.
Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Tundu, and good morning, Doctor. We begin with the WTO. Yesterday in Geneva, there were lockdown measures that were placed between November the 2nd and November the 29th, where gatherings of more than 5 people are being prohibited. And so this is throwing into flux the WTO's decision to, officially confirm Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala as Director General at their next council meeting, General Council meeting, which is scheduled for November the 9th. Of course, the meetings can still be virtual, but the leadership there is saying that because of the restrictions, they might push back the decision to confirm her. Now, there's also talk that they could also wait if Joe Biden wins the U.S. election, which we'll get to in a second. But if he is to win, it's been whispered that there are some delegates at the WTO that would prefer to wait until after his inauguration in January of next year. Again, this is if he was to win, because they see him as more friendly towards their multilateral approach when it comes to trade deals. Now, of course, if President Donald Trump is reelected, then that now, throws a wrench into their plans, because as we remember, it was the U.S. that was the lone nation that held up the official confirmation of Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala as the new Director General. So, we'll wait to see what happens. But COVID-19, again, it just shows how it has been, COVID-19 has been disrupting things, gatherings, decisions, and this is yet another possible disruption that could take place. So we'll see what happens on the 9th. Moving to the elections, some interesting tweets that have been floating around. This is from, he's an investor in Frontier Markets, Dimitri Fortiev. He said polls are set to open in 24 hours in the U.S. as the oil-rich American nation braces for potential post-election violence. The election comes as the country is reeling from a health and humanitarian crisis which claimed nearly 250,000 lives, excavating existing ethnic tensions. And then his next tweet, he says, the sad irony is that this is the kind of language that Western journalists often use for the coverage of Africa. Who could have imagined that the tables have turned so quickly? So he's talking about, of course, the coronavirus, how it's affected the U.S. and Trump's, tendencies. Some more tweets I thought were interesting here. This individual said countries with long-rolling stable democracies like Nigeria and Ghana have offered to send election monitors to confirm a free and fair American election. And then after that, this individual says the Nigerian government has issued a travel advisory to its citizens wishing to travel to the USA. All travel is advised shelved until at least 2 weeks after the elections. Bloody clashes expected across various cities. Nigerian residents advised to stock up essential as stable. For our viewers, this is sarcasm. Just for our viewers that are reading these tweets, these are Nigerians that are weighing in on the elections and sarcastically tweeting the way Western media outfits would cover elections in African nations that, of course, have had their troubles in the past. So it's just interesting how the tables have turned.
They've been listening to Dr. Abati. Dr. Abati gave that advice as well.
Yes, he did. But Rotus, I don't think this is sarcasm, Rotus. This is what is happening on ground in America. You remember the boss case that FBI is investigating, that Trump supporters, a Joe Biden campaign boss was going, and 4 Trump supporters, the cars crowded around Joe Biden. You remember the fight on the streets of New York?
Yes.
So this is not sarcasm, Rotus.
Well, you're right. It's
already happened. Election violence already started in America.
It has already started, and people are actually nervous to see what happens with the outcome. But then, so again, Africans have been weighing in on the election. Some just showing the images of when President Buhari met with President Trump. Some, as far as the Nigerians that I've spoken with, those that support Trump feel that he speaks his mind and he is the, I'm not really sure if the word is the benevolent dictator. It sounds like an oxymoron. But, that's the reason why some support him, because he speaks his mind. And I've noticed that some of them tend to project him upon President Buhari, where they wish he would be more assertive and speak in more powerful language. For those that like Biden, they feel that Joe Biden is, is more soft-spoken, more open to dialogue, less of a leader that would, act through a clenched fist, less prone to go it alone. I just talked about, of course, the WTO and how, it's not being publicly said, but quietly some of them would rather that he win later today or tomorrow. We'll see the results come out so that he will be more open. I think Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala's confirmation would be more likely if Biden is elected. Again, we'll see what happens. And then finally, gaming sites in Nigeria are taking advantage of the election. This is a Bet Naija ticket from someone who is betting on Trump. They're using the decimal odds. So if you look there, you'll see total odds are 2.6. What it is for every 1 naira you bet, you get 2 naira 60 kobo back. So this individual has staked 100,000 naira and is set to win 260,000. Again, using decimal odds where you win a multiple of your earnings. So, gaming sites in Nigeria are set to profit from this election. Of course, you can see that with the expansion of gaming sites, their business model now, they've gone beyond sports. Usually it's just sports. It's pretty much any events that you can pick an outcome from. They are profiting off it, and so because of the interest in the elections, you're going to see some of these betting sites make some money off of the outcome. Well, and that's our update.
Well, Rotus, I don't gamble, but this betting odds that you are talking about looks attractive. Maybe immediately after the program, I'll come and see you so that you offer me some advice about how to go about it. I mean, I can, money doubling is not It's not something bad. As
But
long
you
as
can
it
also
is,
lose money.
as long as it is not criminal, but you can take a chance. But quickly, on the election in the United States, yes, I mean, we discussed this issue the other day. This looks like one of the most divisive presidential elections in the history of the United States. And all of us should be interested because the U.S., given its superior position in global politics, whatever happens in that country can affect other countries. And Nigeria should be particularly interested, I keep arguing, because we have many Nigerians in that country. In fact, the Nigerian immigrants are considered to be among the most prominent, the most educated coming from the continent of Africa. Even in this election today, there are at least 9 Nigerians across the United States who are taking part in different elections. So the threat of violence is something that Nigeria should be interested in. The fairness of the process is also important. The United States puts itself out as the policeman of democracy across the world. But we've seen in recent times that the United States, in terms of elections, in terms of governance, has been looking more and more like a third world country.
Yes.
I mean, they are also distributing food. I saw a video of food being distributed as part of the election. Now, that's voter fraud. You know, we've seen all kinds of inducement. We've seen violence.
Stomach infrastructure.
Yes, we've seen violence in Manhattan, Ithaca, San Francisco, Denver, Colorado, you know, in the run-up to the election. So I don't think it's out of place, and it's probably not too late for Nigeria and other African countries to say that, look, that democracy they have in the United States, the world is also interested. And President Trump and the others should make sure that this is a free and fair election. We expect the election to be credible. And because we have citizens in the United States, those are citizens, they deserve a travel advisory.
Yes.
They should be told, for example, to be careful because at the end of this election, whoever wins, there's likely to be violence on the streets of the United States.
President Trump tweeted about 4 hours ago saying that, you know, Pennsylvania, what's going on there with their Supreme Court decision will induce violence on the streets. He used the word will. This is the same president that told the Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. It's very sinister.
And they are standing by, and we've seen indications of that in Manhattan last Sunday. As for the WTO, well, the conversation about a likely delay, well, maybe that's tactical, don't you think so? Or maybe we use the word strategic. I don't think the COVID-19 restrictions in Geneva could stop the General Council from continuing with consultations, from doing whatever they have to do online. I don't think the previous consultations, they had to be there physically in Geneva, but it's strategic, because everything depends at the moment on the outcome of the U.S. presidential election. Will it not be better to allow the election to be held and then to delay until whoever wins is inaugurated on January 20, 2021? Because we are all hoping that Vice President Biden will win. If he wins, then it will be better to just wait till Trump leaves the White House and the WTO and the rest of the world can engage better with a Biden administration. You talk about President Trump being forthright and the support he's getting from Nigerians. Yes, last week there was a church, last Sunday, there was a church in the eastern part of the country where the pastor went onto the streets with his congregants, and they were campaigning for President Trump 2020, make America great again. And everybody thought that was ridiculous. But here in Nigeria, President Trump gets a lot of support from right-wing evangelicals who think this is a Christian president and anything against Trump is an attack against Christianity.
A lot of my very close friends who are Christians absolutely adore Trump. And they don't even mind. They're able to explain away all his numerous gaffes and missteps because he's doing the Lord's work as far as he's concerned. But they forget that Nebuchadnezzar was also God's servant, wasn't he? So sometimes God said do something. Sometimes it's not a blessing, it's judgment.
Right. You know, Tundu, very spot on, because when I try to explain to some of my friends that are evangelicals, I fall in that evangelical category too. In fact, some of them say...
Oh, you are one of the pastors?
No, I'm not. I'm a Christian. That's what I'm saying. So I fall into the evangelical Pentecostal category too. But when I make this argument with them, some of them are so quick to say, oh, you are the Antichrist. Ooh. It has gotten that bad in the conversation.
No, but you need new friends.
Any person
who calls you names because you disagree politically?
That Trump is the will of God. Right. And that's what they keep telling
the will of God
people.
Sometimes is judgment, but you need new friends. If your friends cannot have an argument about politics without calling names, you need new friends.
All right, we'll move on to Michael Wilson now, and he's joining us from London. Michael, you can see how divided Nigeria is over the American elections. Michael, good morning.
I'm amazed at Nebuchadnezzar, actually. I haven't heard that.
Read your Bible, Mr. Wilson.
No, I mean, I was going to say I haven't heard that since I was at Sunday school, a very long time.
Every day Sunday school here.
Probably round about the same time as Nebuchadnezzar was, as far as I know. Anyway, You've been talking about the election. There's a powder keg going on there, no question about that. But let's have a look at the markets and let's have a look, see how people are actually thinking. And there was a huge and massive outperformance by American PMIs yesterday that lifted pre-election spirits on Wall Street. And the data was very impressive. I have to say, it looks like, I don't believe this, but the data is suggesting that the US is navigating the COVID-19 storm very well indeed. So that Wall Street rally, never mind the election, that lifted Asian stock markets, which are rising for a second week in a row. The Hang Seng, for example, leapt 2.25%, but that's probably to do with the Ant Financial IPO. And on that, Jack Ma, who is the owner and the founder of Ant, has been summoned by Chinese central bank and also by their regulators there for questions ahead of the company's, get this, $37 billion IPO. That's on Thursday. He's been critical outside the country of the Chinese banking system. He'll probably get a bit of a dressing down, but I'm sure he won't mind. So, as I said, overnight, markets got a big boost from PMIs. Asia, Europe mostly outperformed. Germany, China, as you'd expect, and the United States were the standouts. And again, but there's a big caveat as far as Germany and France are concerned. Never mind the elections, because, of course, the new COVID-19 lockdowns, there is a great feeling of risk at the moment, and that will help the dollar, particularly if the result is close and also inconclusive tomorrow. There's been a lot of back and forth, as we've noted in the programme many times over the past few months with respect to the proposed US stimulus package. You have to ask yourself the question, given these politicians, what will happen to that? It's possible that equity traders were actually squaring up their books before they're going to sort of hunker down really today, in the same way that they tend to do before the US non-farm payrolls. Those come up on Friday, but generally on a Friday before they actually happen, and on the Thursday as well, people don't take many positions. So will the stimulus package be delivered? Probably slightly more positively if Trump were to win, clearly, but then again, who knows? Traders will also be keeping an eye on the Senate. This is where the big fight's going to be. 35 seats up for re-election, and the Republicans at the moment have a slim majority, but that's all about passing legislation. Here, now, this is quite interesting. So the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, here in the UK, actually ducked out of a meeting, a keynote speech that he normally delivers, called something called the CBI conference. This is basically Britain's biggest bosses all gather together in the late autumn and start to talk about the way things ought to be as far as business is concerned. And this is just adding to a feeling there's a bigger disconnect between business and the government now. And also, get this, so later today, the scientists who are so quickly pushing us into lockdown on Saturday, this comes into effect on Thursday, are actually going before a government committee to justify why they actually said that. Because a lot of people are saying that the kind of numbers that they've been using about COVID-19 and its effect on the economy and the country, this will apply to you as well. is quite out of date, actually. So these scientists who, as I keep saying, have very little skin in the game, but are very good at telling us what scientific opinion is saying, whether politicians take note, of course, different kind of matter, are going before a very powerful committee. That's going to be interesting today. Here's a good one for you. I'm sure none of you actually go to pubs or restaurants because you're far too busy. But here, they're slashing prices ahead of the lockdown on Thursday. A pint of beer will now be about 400 naira. That's about 99 pence, isn't it? About a pound a pint. Can't beat that. But I must unfortunately get on with my work. Oil, an impressive recovery as far as that's concerned, up to 39, not near Good Doctor's idea of $40 a barrel. We were talking about this, how your economy is actually dependent upon it reaching that kind of figure. But to give you an idea about how bad things are, Saudi Aramco's net profit fell by 44.6% in the third quarter of 2020. Gold is rising the second day in a row. And that adds to my thoughts about risk being very much on. So, shall we just look past the election? How about discussing this? No matter who wins and what sort of policies there are, China will be the exception to the rest of the world being in a sort of recession. Movement between countries, very, very crimped at the moment. That won't help things at all. That isn't going to change. And central banks will be absolutely ultra dovish. I would therefore argue there's a risk, a big risk about applying too much importance to the politics that are taking place at the moment. And look at what the federal central banks are doing. That's my global view this morning.
Okay, Michael, just real quickly, I mean, in the spirit of the elections, looking further at the elections, I just want to ask you this. Looking at economic policies, who do you think will tip the balance? Joe Biden or Donald Trump? Donald Trump wants to reduce taxes. Obviously, Joe Biden will raise taxes for the middle class. And that economic squabble keeps going on. Who do you think?
Right. So cuts to corporation tax in the United States have had no impact at all on the US stock market. The fact of it is, it's all about central banks. It's also about them being dovish, and that happens in the United States. I don't think it's at all, I mean, you'll hear many commentators talking about this. I don't think it's at all clear about which of the two candidates, which of the two possible presidents will actually be better for business. You would imagine it would be the Republicans. But then again, if Joe Biden starts a big infrastructure project, if he starts ramping up a move towards green projects and so on, will that create jobs? Yes, it probably will. Will people on Main Street feel better about one or the other? I think that's very much dependent on the stimulus package. And I was saying at the beginning of all this, that hasn't actually happened yet. Now, if you think that one of those candidates is going to push that forward, that slightly pushes us towards Joe Biden being slightly better for Main Street. Wall Street won't care. Wall Street is all about increasing asset prices, and the stock markets will rise. No question about that, because central banks will be dovish.
Thank you so much for that. Every election has a theme. The 1980 American election was about the Iran hostage crisis. This is tagged the COVID-19 elections 2020. Adesu Omoruan, take it over. Updates on COVID-19 pandemic.
Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Dr. Batia, and good morning, Tundum.
Morning.
And just talking about the COVID-19 pandemic, we continue to record above 500,000 cases globally each day. We've been doing that for a couple of days now. Yesterday, over 500,000 cases were also recorded. If we do have the global figures come up, yes, and that brought the total tally to almost 47 million recorded infections. As regards deaths, 5,811 deaths were recorded globally as well, bringing the total tally to 1.2 million, above 1.2 million deaths there. And let's go to the UK, where the Prime Minister Boris Johnson yesterday defended his decision to impose a second national lockdown, brushing aside criticism that weeks of delay have meant thousands of more infections and hundreds of needless deaths in the country. Well, Prime Minister Boris Johnson told MPs that there was no alternative to the wide COVID-19 lockdown in the country. And under the proposed lockdown, what are the measures? Well, most shops will be closed until the 2nd of December, with bars and restaurants restricted to takeout and delivery services. People will be ordered to stay home except for work, exercise, and essential shopping, and schools will remain open. Where the new policy comes barely 3 weeks after the Prime Minister announced the plans for a 3-tiered regional approach to combating the virus. He was defending those measures yesterday, guys, when he said that as the data changes, the cause must also change. When it comes to COVID-19, nothing is really static. He told lawmakers that it was right to try to impose local measures first. Well, away from that, in what can be described as encouraging news as regards how we can better be informed to detect and treat COVID-19, well, those are the figures from the UK yesterday, but away from that, scientists have now found evidence of immune cells responding to COVID-19 6 months after people were infected. In a study of 100 people with the virus, those with symptoms had a much higher T cell reaction. But it is not clear whether this leads to a better protection against reinfection. The UK research team says the findings are just one piece of the puzzle on immunity, and there still needs to be a lot more research done. Very quickly, let me explain what these T cells mean. Now, there are specialized cells of the immune system called T cells. They have receptors, and they recognize disease-causing agents and launch attack. In launching their attack, they break down rapidly, multiplying to fight. And then between 1 to 2 weeks after, we have another cell that is generated. They are called the B cells. Now, the B cells generate they generate antibodies and also help to fight the attack. Now, these two wonderful cells that fight off the disease agents, they remain in the body, and they have what they are part of our immune memory. So when next they see such disease-causing agents, they're able to fight faster. But the puzzle still remains, how long can we have them? How quickly can they respond? Or can they even prevent at all with those who are asymptomatic or symptomatic when it comes to COVID-19? So again, the scientists have said this is just one piece of the puzzle that we need to solve. But it's great news, talking about how we can learn from those who have been exposed to COVID-19, those who have been infected with it, and those who have recovered from it. And very quickly, guys, finally this morning, let's go to South Africa, where it's no longer news that South Africa is the most affected country when it comes to COVID-19 on the African continent. According to the Africa CDC, South Africa accounts for 40% of all cases recorded on the continent. But what is news this morning is that a pharmaceutical firm called Aspen Pharmacare in South Africa has announced a deal with the US firm Johnson & Johnson to manufacture its COVID-19 vaccine candidate if it is approved in South Africa and internationally. Well, Johnson & Johnson test vaccine is one of the 4 different vaccines currently undergoing trials in South Africa. Now, this deal will see Johnson & Johnson supplying the vaccine in large batches, but Aspen would now put it into vials and package it for individual doses pending a final commercial agreement. Aspen says it has a track record of supplying drugs for the treatment of HIV and AIDS and the multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. It also says that its facility has the capacity to manufacture over 300 million doses of the vaccine a year. So that's huge for South Africa if this vaccine is actually approved. Well,
Adesua, first a question and then a comment. The question is about the Nigerian situation. In the last 24 hours, the Center for Disease Control reported only 72 new cases in Nigeria. Now, out of those 72 cases, more than 50 are from Lagos, FCT 6, Ogun State 4, some other states 2, 1. What are we witnessing here? Is it a question of pandemic exhaustion in Nigeria? Because every state is opening up, schools are coming back, all the churches are back, all the Owambe parties are busy from Friday to Sunday. I see people jollofing and partying all over town. And yet, the African Center for Disease Control and the Nigeria Center for Disease Control have both warned us that Nigeria and other African countries face the threat of a second wave. So what are we dealing with? Pandemic exhaustion, that's that. Now, as for the study that you brought up in the UK, I think that study is to be contrasted with another study in early October that was disclosed by the Department of Infectious Diseases at the Imperial College, London. And the outcome of that study, which even had a bigger sample for investigation, about 365,000 persons. The one you refer to had just 100 persons.
Yes.
And the conclusion by the professors at the Imperial College is that we don't know enough yet about collective immunity. Nobody should talk about herd immunity. Because if you rely on herd immunity, what their own study revealed is that, in fact, within 6 to 12 months, if you had COVID-19, you could be reinfected, and the immunity could go down. And, you know, their finding was further promoted by the Office of National Statistics. That said, in the UK, despite what has been discovered, the truth is that immunity was going down.
Yes.
So there are more questions to be addressed rather than for us to celebrate the outcome of that study.
All right. This will keep those questions till tomorrow.
Okay.
It's a shame we'll have to go now.